you for joining me today on the Private Investigator Experience podcast. I'm your host, Phil Little, and if this is your first time joining me, I'm the West Coast Detectives International, a 102-year-old global security firm. I work my cases through the lens of my military, law enforcement, and intelligence service background, coupled with my global security. Then I just add a touch of my biblical worldview to come up with solutions for our clients. I've done hundreds of meetings with clubs, NGOs, government agencies, seminars, conferences, radio and television, both live and taped, and I've hosted a radio and television talk show. One of the most asked questions I get is, how did I get into PI work? Did I know as a child this is what I wanted to do? In my childhood time, it was different, a different era than today. Particularly since I grew up on a farm in northern Missouri. Everything involved around the farm and all its responsibilities of farm living. If you've been in a farm circumstance, you know that it's a 24/7, the clock, year-long lifestyle with responsibilities for what you have on the farm. And we had 15 to 20 milk cows. We milked by hand. We didn't have automatic milkers. We had both workhorses still, even though we had a tractor, and I had a quarter horse for working the cattle, and then we had hogs and chickens, gardens and all that. My family was 6th-generation farmers, and as a young boy, your future was staying on the farm. My first interest in law enforcement, when this investigative area started, with my seeing the Missouri state troopers with their fast cars and form-fitting uniforms with this trooper hat on that made them look really sinister and somebody you didn't want to mess with. And then over the driver side door, they had a 30-06 strapped up there, ready to go. And it was a one-man show many times. I remember near our place, there was a river and a bridge that crossed it. And one time I saw a highway patrol car parked across the road on our side of the bridge, and he was leaning across the hood with this 30-06 out as a car from the other side was speeding onto the bridge. Well, it wasn't going to stop, but he stopped it. And those were the days that I thought, oh, that would be exciting to be in that type of work. And they would come around, talk to my dad, and I would get to stand around and hear the talk. And I didn't realize, as all this was happening around me as a young boy, that my destiny was being shaped. And one day down the road, I was going to experience a different journey than I ever realized from farm life. As I got into my teens, the draft was still on at this time. And men who turned 18 had a choice: go to the Army for 2 years or join the Air Force or the Navy or whatever. Well, I decided the Air Force was for me. I loved airplanes, just what I'd seen about them. And in that era, in the country, and this was a small city I was in, about 7,000 people. We lived outside of town, several miles. And the high school was, I don't know, we had a few hundred kids at the high school. And I just never thought about, a college or going on. It was going to be farm life, or I had to get the military service out of my way. So I joined the Air Force. And I wound up going to Texas to boot camp, and then on to California. I wound up at George Air Force Base, which is now closed. It was a 365-day-a-year base, and we were shipping fighters over to Vietnam during that era, in which I spent almost 3 years there at George before I got out. And then after I got out, I went on the sheriff's department, and we had a volunteer fire department that I was also very involved in and active. We were about 80 miles northeast of Los Angeles. And as the years passed, I was watching the TV shows such as Mannix, Cannon, The Thin Man. You younger people probably don't even know about these. But when I started traveling the world, I was amazed at how the people out around the world knew all these private eye shows. And so when I would show up in this Hollywood PI out of California, everybody was fascinated and wanted to hear what I had to say. So this opened doors both for speaking in gaining business, but also for ministry, because I was very concerned about my spiritual life and wanted to share that with others and use my work life for that. Known to me, as I was sheriff's department doing the volunteer fire department and young life with young boys, I learned that a friend on the highway patrol was leaving the California Highway Patrol, going into private investigative work. And so I began to pick his brain. He told me everything that he had learned, what he was doing, and how he was getting his license. And so I said, you know what? I think this is something I'd really like to do. Somebody told me at that time, why don't you do something you'd really like to do? You have a passion about. Well, I was hooked. And I got my California PI license in 1972, off to the races. As a little old lady in Victorville, Anna Plath told me when she helped me get into the trucking business and doing some other things on the side, she said, now, my son, your college education is starting. And oh, yes, it did. Learning how to run a business. I didn't have any marketing training, but I was willing to work hard. I grew up on a farm, and that's what I learned about hard work from the age of 4 or so on. I learned also as I got into this new field that it was important to find a mentor, somebody that could help you with knowledge, such as my CHP friend helped me get started. And then there was a police chief friend in Southern California who helped me shape my journey, particularly around intelligence gathering, because he was really strong on that and kept hammering me that build your intelligence file, start intelligence gathering, someday it'll pay off. Well, then when I started, I moved down to LA, to North Hollywood area, and I had a law firm as a client. I was doing a lot of accident investigating work. And he told me, Fred Gabler at a law firm there schooled me on how to be successful. He told me about how many new businesses go out in the first year just because people don't know how to handle the money. So he told me, when you finish a case and lay down your report, where it's this firm or any firm, get your money, get paid. I learned that well and was able to help others down the road when they went into PI work. And some of them worked for me that went out and started their own companies, and I helped them get started. Then getting involved in local events where business people go, reaching out to friends and associates. My first corporate client came from a friend who I'd met who opened the door to company for me. Friends opening doors for me continued all through my career and was extremely important as I opened international stations. I felt it was my duty to earn people wanting to refer me by doing exceptional work for them. We didn't cut corners. I learned in the Air Force about prevention in jet fighters. Prevent, prevent, prevent. Something goes wrong. Not only could you lose the airplane, but you could lose a pilot. So I hammered that into our team when I was starting a one-man operation. And then as I began to add investigators before I took over West Coast Detectives, I was talking about prevent, prevent, prevent. What could the problem be? Let's find out and work it out and have a plan to prevent it before it ever happened. So that if you want to go into any business, in the PI business, that is critical. As I went along, I began to see that general PI work was mostly common sense and experience. Yeah, there's specialty areas like CSI and all that where you need training and education and scientific knowledge. But this is general PI work. Was you learn by experience and you use common sense to figure out solutions. Then the other important skill to have is report writing. Being able to write a good report that shows a client exactly what you did. You know, in law enforcement work, we would do a half-page report, tell the facts, and there it is. Thank you. But in the private sector, doing that half-page report, the client would say, "You're charging me that?" Or this little. Well, in the private sector, we want to describe everything we did, how we went about doing it without giving away secrets, but to show the work that went in. So I would have a 2-page report on a simple case, and the clients many times would say, "That's all you're charging me for what you did?" And so having good report writing skills is extremely, and getting the facts. Try to answer a question before it's asked. If you read a report, and I used to do this and I trained our people, read the report like you're getting that from a client. It's done work for you. Would you be happy with the report? Are there questions that were raised that weren't answered? And so many times people that I saw do reports, they would ask the client, well, here's the situation. What do you think? You want to do something? Well, what do you think we're going to do? And I would say, no. We're the investigators. We tell the client what they should do and explain to them why they should do it, not giving them the reason to say, nah, I don't need to do that, because they wouldn't really know anyway. So I found that those were skills: write good reports and have good communications with your clients. Keep them informed as you go along with a lot of information. One of the biggest complaints I heard from clients who had hired private investigators, they would tell me that they were having trouble with getting reports. They could never get a report out of them. They wouldn't answer the phone. They wouldn't talk to them. They took a retainer, and then they disappeared. And many times they would come to us, and we would have to go in and clean up a case that they'd paid money for, sometimes larger amounts of money, and gotten no results. That hurt our profession as a whole. We have a duty and an obligations. You need personal integrity. Whether you're a private investigator or any other job, do your job like you would want it done for you in the best way you can. And don't exaggerate. Don't stretch the truth in a case. Tell the facts, whatever they are. You can't change them. And if a client doesn't like it, and I've had clients many times who would come to us and say, I know this is going on. And sometimes this would be about family issues or other things. This person is spying on me. This person is doing this and that, and all these things. And we would investigate. We would find it wasn't true. Well, the clients didn't really want to hear that. They thought, oh, I've been accused at times. You've been bought off. They paid you to not tell the truth, when what we gathered was the facts. So sometimes clients don't want to hear it, but we still tell them the facts. So one of the keys to my growth as a private investigator was having personal integrity and doing everything that I could to be the best investigator. And I started out wanting to be the best investigator in LA and LA County, and then to Southern California. And then I said, I want to be the best in the state. And then as time went on, I want to be the best investigator in the US. And then as time went on, I said, I want to be known and be the best investigator out around the world. And all that did come to pass. I also make it a role doing all I can about every type of case we work. When I sent agents on a case, I wanted to know how they were supposed to do the case so I could judge if they really did it. And sometimes you'd have maybe investigators who would try to snow you a little bit, exaggerate or mix the truth of what they did. Many times, if they tried that, I knew they were doing it and would be able to fix it before it became a client problem. Private investigation has changed a lot since I started in 1972. We had limited tools then. Most of the facts we found out were working the streets, talking to people, finding leads. I can't tell you how many hours we would spend at the county clerk's office going through microfiche. Many of you probably haven't even heard of those things. Microfiche files, they have these like x-rays, drawers and packs of them. And if you wanted to find if somebody had a record or something about a civil case, you would have to go through that microfiche, find that file. Then they would have to pull the file out of storage. And sometimes, if there were old cases, this would take a week or more. Now, I can find out in a few minutes all those things. And in fact, now we know 85% of what we need to know before we would go in the field. And many times going in the field is just confirming that, or being able to interview people first, personally. As my international work, and in my first book, Hostile Intent, I talk about how I got started in southern Lebanon, northern Israel. And we could talk for hours about cases, about situations in my journey in this. That book tells a little bit about it. Then my first fiction book was Hell in a Briefcase. And these took cases I'd worked and fictionalized them and made a lot more action to them. My international work started with my trips into Israel, which led going into southern Lebanon and meeting with the leader of Free Lebanon. I was on a board of a group that was taking groups to the Holy Land for people that wanted to go and see where Jesus walked and the biblical Lamb. And when I was asked to go on this board of the ministry, I didn't realize that this was going to change my life. This was a journey and an opening to where we were going to go internationally. The desire that helped me to develop not only adventure, but I found I was looking into the world of terrorism in southern Lebanon and Israel. And I began to ask questions. How can we stop it from spreading? So be open to opportunities that come up for you. Be willing to give of your time, to get involved in organizations within your community. Or when you get asked, you never know when that will open up a door to something that will be given back to you because you volunteered your time. As I was on the ground there in southern Lebanon in and out of terrorist training camps and seeing information, I suspected that it was only going to be a matter of time before the U.S. would experience world terrorism. And Europe was becoming a hotbed for terrorists all across Europe. Backed by the Soviet Union were these gangs and cells springing up in Germany and France and England and IRA in Ireland and Spain. And this was a different kind of terrorism. At that point, it was more regional, and it was a very sophisticated group of young people mostly in it. Many of them from wealthy families and well-educated. This wasn't a bunch of minorities trying to figure out, hey, we're getting taken advantage of. We need to change this. And the Soviet Union was helping in training, and they were in many cases, which led to my concern because they were exchanging talents they had. Like the IRA were proficient at bomb making. So they were coming down into Europe, into France, Germany, and Spain, and different places, and helping train terrorists there how to build bombs. And so I started building my network across Europe, and here I was, back to benefiting from a relationship with a friend who I'd met and known, who happened to be in the French National Police and the Counterterrorism Division. And he opened doors for me across Europe, and that's how I set up in England and in Germany with the co-founder of GSG9, Lemmy Weigel, coming to work for me during his time at G9 and afterwards. And so the relationships and friendships are important and will benefit us in life as we get into things that we could never dream about. I never dreamed that I would be building a private intelligence operation across Europe, the Far East, into Latin America when I started. I had no idea that I would live out a dream PI work after 9/11, helping in missions to stop terrorists before they got to the United States. I was just started as a farm boy, as a California PI. And so nothing is impossible if you have a dream and have a passion and you're willing to work hard. So also, I must say, in my life, the most important part of my growth was my relationship with the living God, who loved me and wanted me to succeed, and he helped me. He took the foolishest things of the world to confound the wise, and he opened doors not only for business meetings around the world, but for ministry, for people that wanted to hear what a California PI had to say. And because, like I said before, I learned that they knew some of the shows better than I did that were running on cable all over the world, or on television channels then, and on reruns. So in my work so many times as an investigator, I didn't know what to say or do when I was in interrogation. I would just be blank, and I knew some things and nothing was working. The person was just saying, no, 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 you got it wrong. And then I would just sit in a silent prayer. I would just say, God, I don't know what to say. Help me. And I would sit there just looking at the person. And sometimes that worked well because it made him nervous. And then something would pop into my mind. Out of the blue, right? Coincidence, right? Only trouble is when I didn't pray, it didn't happen. And I would ask them that question. And time after time, they would say, how did you know? And he would break the whole case wide open. I remember one time, I was working on a case the FBI was working on. And we had a suspect in my office. Two FBI agents were sitting on the couch behind the person who was in the chair in front of my desk. And they'd been working on this guy. And they couldn't get him to break or couldn't get him on any charges. They knew what he was doing. And when this happened, that happened there in that case. And the guy just caved and told everything. They were just saying, how in the world did you do that? I said, well, I just prayed. I know the chief investigator. So I welcome your comments. Feel free to give me questions or suggestions, or we're expanding out in our podcast and YouTube channel. And hopefully this will be things that you're interested in. But tell me what you'd like to hear about. Cases or circumstances, or how do you work with the government and the police department? I get asked all these kind of questions, and I will answer you. You can either do that on any of the platforms, or you can email me at pi777@gmail.com. Also, I find that I talk to people and they said, oh, I wished I would have called you. I didn't know a private investigator could help with my situation. So if you have a situation in your life, business, family, relationships, that you say, I wonder if a private investigator could help me get a solution to this, send me the information and I'll get back to you if there's a solution and how it could work to help you find peace of mind. One of the things we do in working with our clients on a case is not only giving them the facts, but I'll never forget the head of a large international electronic company in Southern California that we handled for 25 years had told me early on, after we'd been there 2 or 3 years, he said, Phil, what you give me every night is peace of mind. I go to sleep knowing that our facilities and people and everything is protected 24 hours a day, and I don't have to worry about it. Peace of mind. That's what maybe you're looking for too. So email me, pi777@gmail.com. Well, until next time, be safe. May God bless you, your family, and may God bless America.